All right, I want to welcome everybody on the call today. My name is Brian McKenzie. I have the privilege to serve as Director of Football for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and welcome you to the 13th edition to the Heart of the Coach, where we get a chance to visit with a coach, ask him some questions so he can share his heart, how his relationship with the Lord impacts the way that he coaches, and just get to know him a little bit better and hopefully encourage you and equip you better as a coach where you are. So it's my privilege to introduce our guest coach today, Coach Van Malone. He's the assistant head coach and defensive pass game coordinator and cornerbacks coach at Kansas State University. Van, welcome to the call.
Great to be here, Brian. Thanks a lot for having me.
Well, thanks for taking your time. Well, Van, I know you've been enjoying spending some time with your family. What's something you all have enjoyed doing as a family during this time of quarantine?
Man, I tell you, well, first of all, some of these guys on here, I know they have wives, so anytime you're not at work, you're going to have to do some honeydews. So I've gone through the list of those. But, you know, honestly, it's been kind of cool to have the opportunity to spend time with my family. You know, guys who are coaching, we don't get that time, right? We don't get a chance to go to ball games. We don't get a chance to do any of those things that I would say normal dads and normal husbands get to do. So to have the opportunity to be at home, we've played video games, we've watched movies. And, you know, one of the things my wife always says is that life is about memories and moments. And so to have the opportunity to have my two sons who are in college, to have them at home, you know, I thought many days during this time about the fact that they would be away right now. You know, they would be in a dorm, they would be in one case, be in another state. So that's been cool, just to be able to have an opportunity to spend time with them. We've done virtual church, play video games. I cooked a few times. It hadn't been the greatest, I'll confess to that. But they better not tell me that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I love that. To the two M's, memories and moments, where your wife's so right. And during this time, we had a chance to make some memories and moments. Glad you'll be able to do that with your family. Well, Van, what's the greatest football game, at least one of the greatest football games you've been a part of, and why was it so great?
You asked me that question. You know, I've had some great opportunities. I've been with some great coaches and been around some great players. I mean, I can think about the Tulsa team that I coached on, and we went to Notre Dame and beat Notre Dame at home, you know, with a bunch of kids who probably couldn't fit into Notre Dame uniforms. And then a Mississippi State team went down to the wire with a really good LSU team in 2018. But really the game that I remember more than any in my life is the game that I played in high school. And the Waltrip High School, were set to play against one of the top ranked teams in the state of Texas. And I mean, this is Jack Yates, and this team had really some future NFL players, but a lot of college players on the team. And we were not supposed to be on the field with this team athletically. And our guys, our team, they went in and they fought. They practiced all week. And, you know, it's kind of funny as a coach, you teach and train those things, but it seems different as a player. You know, you see it differently as a player. But I remember that game the same way that I would have, if I were a coach on that team, the same way that I would have wanted to remember it. A lot of kids hung together, fought through different injuries. We lost the game, but the memory that I have is so dominant in my mind, because during that week and during that game, even in a losing effort, I saw people come together, and the things that we always talk about as a team or as coaches is hold each other accountable, play for the guy next to you. All those things, they happen in that game. And of course, I would have liked to win, but we didn't. But I learned a tremendous amount as a kid, you know, playing in that game.
Well, I love it. It's interesting when you ask that kind of question to somebody and they remember those games. They usually don't remember plays. They remember people and what people were able to do. And that's exactly what you
Yeah.
expressed, Coach. I love that.
Right.
Well, man,
Right.
how do you want
Right.
your
Right.
relationship with Jesus to practically – how do you want your relationship with Jesus to practically impact your players at K-State?
Well, to me, I have always tried to live what I call a principled life, right? And so when you live that way, what I talk to my players about is I talk to them about the Malone Creed, right? And so my kids, they get this at home, and I'm fortunate. I happen to have one of my sons who is in the position group with me, and so my creed, or the Malone Creed, is that the Malones love the Lord, that the Malones love each other, that the Malones never quit, and that the Malones work hard. And so, we as coaches, we listen to a lot of motivational speakers, and we bring some into our team. And when you think about some of these things uh, that motivational speakers give you, that give you a team, those processes have been around for a long time. And even if you look into the Bible, you'll find some of those things. You'll find some of the Malone Creed in the Bible. And so what I try to do, because we can't throw the Bible in their faces, and honestly, people don't want you to preach to them, right? But what I try to do is I try to give my guys, my players, practical things as they live their lives, uh, that really come from the Bible, right? Just like the motivational speakers that we pay a lot of money for, those principles that they're giving us, be accountable to yourself and your teammates, right? Give the greatest effort. You can find those things in the Bible, and I kind of look at it like Jesus as the coach, right? And the Bible is the playbook, right? And so uh, I kind of approach it that way with my players, not necessarily talking in those same terms, but approach it that way in trying to teach them along the way. And so if Jesus was my coach, I got a lot of mental errors, you know what I mean? But so do we all. And so that's kind of the way I take my faith into the meeting room with my players.
Yeah. I love that, Coach. Just the Malone Creed, back in the 1st and 2nd century in early Christianity, when everybody didn't have a copy of the Bible, they came up with the creeds we call the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, and they basically just were trying to summarize key truths for people to remember. So I love that, the Malone Creed, which is ultimately the Lord's Creed, but I love that, Coach. Well, how do you, just in the midst of a busy schedule as a coach, things are a little different now, but normally super busy, how do you foster your own relationship with the Lord during a busy football season when you're up early, up late, got all these things going on? How do you foster your own relationship with the Lord?
Well, I think that is probably the biggest challenge that I have, and that probably coaches have day to day, is because you have all these responsibilities. You're recruiting, and you're scouting the next opponent, and you're evaluating your players day by day, and helping them to make sure they stay locked in on the academics. And so for me, like I said, it's very difficult. But they have the Bible app out now, and so I try to do plans with coaches, with friends, with my wife, and I try to be disciplined in that way. Like I said, it's very difficult, and I'll admit to that, it's very difficult. But you have to have a little private time. I'm telling you, over the course of my career, the greatest coaches that I've been around, the greatest men that I've been around, when I pass their doors, I always see that happening. They make time. I've seen guys on this staff, when I pass their doors, their Bible is open, and they're making some time. And so that has always been motivation. That has always been drive for me to find a way to do it, because I think God makes me turn my head to see that guy do it. So if he's doing it, then I got to be able to find a way to do it. And so, like I said, I admit that it is difficult, but just a little quiet time with the Bible, and you can do it on your phone. Is something that I've, like I said, try to motivate myself to do.
Yeah, well, I love your honesty. You're exactly right, man. It's the coaching profession is very busy, but you also, I love your statement about the most successful coaches you've ever seen have made time for that. Speaking about some of the most successful, or I would say maybe most influential coaches, name a couple of the most influential coaches in your life you've worked with, and tell us why they were so influential in your life.
Again, just like the games, I could go on and on with the people, the coaches who have influenced me. I'm a coach because of a coach, and I'm a coach because of coaches. And the you know, again, I could go on and on. And Buddy Wyatt is on this call, so I'm not going to be able to say just two. I'm going to have to say three. But Buddy Wyatt is a coach that over the course of our time together, actually, Buddy is the guy who tricked me into college coaching. But I've always admired who he is, and I'm just going to stick with the people who I've worked with. I've always admired who Buddy is, who he is as a father, who he is as a coach, and the way he deals with his players. But then who he is as a man. You know, if he was not a coach, I've always been impressed with that, and I've tried to do the best I could to pattern myself after some of the things I learned from him. But Joe Kynes is another coach that I've really learned from tremendously, and our time together, working together, but then even years after that, because he taught me the importance of balancing your life. Um, Joe works harder than anybody. When Joe and I got together at Texas A&M, I I thought I was like the man, you know, in terms of working harder than anybody. And so what I would do is I would get to the office. If the meeting started at 8, I get to the office at 5:30. There wouldn't be many guys on the staff that would be there. I always had great pride in being the first guy there. But when Joe joined the staff at 5:30 in the morning, I come and Joe's already there. Like, dang. So I said the next day, I'm going to get there at 5. Joe's already there. All right. I tried it again. 4 o'clock in the morning. The meeting does not start until 8. I'm getting there at 4 o'clock in the morning to beat this guy to the office. I get there at 4 a.m. Joe is there. So I pulled Joe to the side later that day and I said, "Hey, Joe, I got a question." I never said anything to him. "I got a question for you, Joe. What time do you get here in the morning?" He said, "Oh, man, I might wake up at about 3:30 and pop on up and come over here." Joe won it, right? I ended the competition. And so here's a guy who worked hard, but had incredible balance in his life. His faith, his family, and football, they all had places in his life. The third guy is Bruce Bell. And Bruce coached me in high school, and then he and I also worked together at North Texas. And the thing that I learned from him was establishing relationships with your players, establishing lasting relationships with your players. We always talk about the fact that your players, they don't care what you know, they just want to know that you care. And Bruce Bell was one of those guys for me growing up. And in my opportunity to work with him, I saw him do the same thing with players. And guess what? He and I still communicate to this day. And so the relationship that he formed with me many years ago is the lasting one. And so that's what I try to do as a coach. As I see some of my former players out here.
Love it, man. Yeah, that's great. Well, it says a lot. It means you were building relationships, like just like you watched him build relationships. That's great. Well, coach, in the midst of a long season, and they get long, you're getting down maybe game 9, 10, or whatever they're in the season, 11, and you just don't feel like, all right, getting up in the morning and heading off the facility. What motivates you on those days? On those days that are just tough to get up, what motivates you to get up and give your best during those kind of days?
Well, honestly, I've kind of I've had it in my soul that I wanted to be a coach since I was in the seventh grade. And so once I kind of realized, yes, that's what I want to do, there's not been many of those days. And so the first component of my answer is that I don't have those days. And so I realized the second component is that I realized how blessed we are, how blessed I am as a coach to be able to to create the world, right? To create the world as we see it in the lives of the guys that we touch, right? In the lives of being able to touch each other. And so, every day for me, there's a mission to do that, even though now today our players are not in the building, right? So you're here in preparation for their return, or you're here in preparation for the next Zoom meeting. And what can I get to reach that guy who is unreachable? And what can I pass on to the guy who's just not getting it? How can I get that done? And that's in all walks of his life, not just football, but in all walks of his life. And so I really have never had those days. But when they do come, man, it's like, hey, they're giving you the football, right? You're a running back. They're giving you the ball. You gotta score with it. You have the ball, so everybody's dependent on you. So that's kind of the way I've always looked at this opportunity to coach.
Well, Dan, you've been coaching over 20 years now. Started off at the high school level, but most of it's been in the college level. What's something you wish you'd known as a young coach that you know now that maybe you could help a young coach maybe listening right now?
It almost goes back to what I just talked about, is that when I was younger as a coach, I was chasing, I was chasing the logo. I wanted to be a big time coach at a big time place. And I wanted to be a head coach. Well, I still want to be a head coach, but what I learned over the years, right, is that, man, nobody cares. No, when your life is over, right, and you're a coach and no more, then nobody's going to really care honestly about the number of games you won, right? They're not going to care. They're going to care about how you touch them and how you touch lives. And that's true in any profession, any realm of life that we're in. But for this life as a coach, you get to touch the life. You get to touch a life, and you get to, reshape somebody or shape somebody. And so I learned that over the course of time, many trials and errors along the way. And then the next thing is that I learned, and I really learned this a hard way, because one of the greatest mistakes of my life is I had a player that come into my office, and this player, he wanted to play, and he wanted to tell me why I was making a mistake and not playing him, and how he was better than the player who was in front of him. Well, he caught me on the wrong day, and I'm sure I suffer from Tourette's, haven't been diagnosed by a doctor, but he caught me on the wrong day, and I lit into this kid, and I told him how he was not better than the other kid, and how he really was not very physical, and how he was not tall. And anyway, I broke him down, and I broke that kid's sword, right? And he would not tell me that, but I really damaged that kid by my words. And so as a coach, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize the power, because this kid would have never told me, Coach, you have this power over me. But I realized, I learned that day that as a coach, you have tremendous power, right? And so you can use that power to lift them up, or you can use that power to break them down. And guess what? On that day, I thought that kid needed to be broken down, right? But, and maybe he did, but for me to break his sword, that was not right, you know? And so, that's something that I really never want to do again.
Yeah, Proverbs 18:21 tells us that life and death are in the power of the tongue. And often we have the opportunity to bring life or bring death, and sometimes we blow up. But thank the Lord that even at times we blow up, maybe God brought somebody else to speak life, and he teaches us from those mistakes. I appreciate you being vulnerable there on that, Van, and just sharing your heart with
That's
us.
one of those times.
Well, what's just a little different question here, but go ahead, Van.
No. I was saying that was one of those times that with Jesus as a coach, I had a mental error. Right, I didn't start the next game.
Yeah. That happens with all of us, brother. Thankfully, that's why God sent Jesus to die on the cross for our sins, so we could walk in grace and walk in the truth of the cross. Well, I want to ask you one more question, and then open it up to the rest of these guys to ask some questions to you. Van, who's your hero and why?
Wow. Man, my father was my hero. He's deceased, but my father was my hero. My father had a drinking problem, and by the world standards, was not the greatest man on earth, right? But by my standards, he was. He taught me how to love. He taught me how to be a father, how to be patient with my kids and grow them the right way. And because that's what he did with me through all of his issues. That's what he did with me, and so I have to choose him as my number one hero. And the second hero, the person that I really rely on in my life for all things, is my wife. When I say all things, I'm talking about directions. I'm talking about tying my shoe, for all things.
Well, love it. One more football question, and then we'll open it up. All right, this fall, November 14th, when you're playing at Oklahoma, you're up by 5, 3 seconds left in the game. They have the ball on your 10-yard line. What are you doing defensively to stop them?
Well, this is an FCA call, so we're praying first. But then after that, we're relying on the practice, right? We're relying on the practice. We've been there before, right? We've been there before. If we were making a call, they would be aggressive calls, right? They would be aggressive calls. But again, we all know this. When you send them out there onto the field, man, you better had shown them, right? You better had letting them see those pictures. And at that point, it's going to happen how it's going to happen.
Well, I love you're going to be aggressive. I was an old defensive guy. I like aggressive, so especially down there when they're coming in on the 10. Well, let's open it up to some questions from some of these guys who are on the call. Anybody have a question for Van? Just unmute yourself and understand there's a little bit of a lag with Van right now, so just be patient when you ask the question.
So I was wondering. Okay.
Hey, Van, Marty Long, Northwestern. Hey, question that I have for you.
Hey, Marty.
Is when you have a problem with your tongue on the field, we're surrounded by guys that may not care about the words that come out of their mouth, and when you live the life the way that we try to live our lives, guys know it, and you may say it at times, and then something comes out of your mouth the wrong way. How do you help yourself, or how do you strengthen yourself as you go through your days?
That's a good question. I really make a point to do what I'm asking you to do, right? What I'm asking those players to do, I really try to exemplify it. We all face things that happen, but if when something happens to me, I go default, and Buddy is learn this. This is a discipline response, right? So we try to focus in on discipline responses, not default responses. So the default response is you hit me, I hit you back. The default response is something happens, boom, my mouth, I go off, right? The discipline response is wait a minute, let's think about what happened there, right? And so I think that it takes more effort to discipline your response, and none at all to go into default mode. So that's what I try to do, and that has helped me over the years to make sure that I handle myself in that way.
Thank you.
Good way to put that. Discipline over default. Good. Who else has a question for Coach Malone?
I got a question. My name is Dexter McCall. I'm a former player of Coach Malone at University of Tulsa. Coach Malone, I just wanted to ask you, first of all, man, how you and your family doing during this crisis? I hope y'all well. I also wanted to ask you, what was your transition of game planning and things for football once you left from playing in the NFL and to get into coaching? Was it the same kind of way that you approached the game when playing? And was coaching a little bit different when it came to game planning or the way you approached the game from a different perspective or a different area of expertise?
The way I looked at it as a coach, different from a player. You know, if I said, okay, player, you're in this box, right? And you get to control the direction that you go. You get to control the speed. You get to control the effort as you're in this box completing a task. Well, as a coach, you're not in the box. You're outside the box, and you're directing that player. Player, there's $20 over taped on that wall. Okay, take 2 steps to your right. Okay, no, 2 steps forward, right? So I have to direct a player to be, so that's the different perspective that I took from coach to player, or from player to then being a coach. But the level of commitment, right? So when you were a player at 7:30, you were at study hall, you were doing something else. Well, the coaches were still there working. At 6 a.m. when you were asleep, the coaches were there working, you know, and so you have to transition your mind as from a player's view to a coach's view, because the coach, now your responsibility is to take care of all the aspects of the game plan, all the aspects of the preparation that the player is not responsible for.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that.
Appreciate that, Coach. That's a great way to put it, too. In the box and out of the box. Great way to look at that. Well, guys, go ahead. One more question.
Hey, Coach, I was wondering, when you recruit, hi, Brian, when you recruit athletes, do you look for Christian athletes, or do you just look for an athlete?
Well, I look for an athlete, but I look for the characteristics that would tell me this is someone who fits into our team, who fits into our culture. Our culture is a culture of faith. Our culture is a culture that you, because I mean, you know, being at a public school, state school, you're not going to be able to operate in certain ways, but our culture is one where there's something bigger than you, right? And so I look for the characteristics in a player and his family that lead me to believe that he fits our program. And I'm not going to determine his faith in this setting, but if he fits our program, if he's on the fringes of fitting our program in that way, then we can bring him in and show him things that will have him to learn about his faith. That's his choice. But so to answer your question, no, that's not where we begin our look, but that's a part of it in the best ways we can and how they fit our culture. So, Brian, I'm fine on time. If
Thank you.
It's okay with you.
Yeah, yeah. We'll do one more question here. We try to keep them to about 30 minutes just for all these guys who've got other responsibilities. So we'll take one more question and we'll wrap it up. One more question.
Okay.
Any other questions, guys? All right. Well, hey, guys, appreciate you being on the call. Van, I appreciate you being on the call today. Want to let you know what's coming up here the next few days. Tomorrow we have Jason Washington. Yeah, 1 second, Van. I'm going to say something else to you in just a second. We got Jason Washington tomorrow, who's safeties coach at Mississippi State University. Friday, we have Dean Hood, the head coach at Murray State University. And then next Monday, Zach Hansen, the new O-line coach at Tulsa, where Van used to be. So, Van, thanks again for being on our call. Thanks for sharing your heart with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate you, Brian.
Yeah. Well, God bless all you guys. Enjoy your day. Hopefully you'll get on here tomorrow with Jason Washington. God bless you.